Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Isle of Berk, Claws of Berk. I'm back. It's been a long week, but I'm back. It's been rough. It's been so incredibly rough, but I'm back, and I'm super excited. I haven't touched much of the mountain besides a few things, and this always happens. I always have my sound off because I'm always doing like 20 things at once. But the mountain hasn't really been touched since the parts of it were completed, besides the fact that I've lit up majority of it on this side. About half of the green area is lit up, and I went along the top to measure it all out. And then we have everyone in here. But since this has really been completed, I added a few other dragons. There's, of course, my large and in charge dragons, and a horse. I still don't know why that horse is still in that corner. But I lit up that half almost is what about where it's at of the moss area. This has it to where it goes all the way in the middle and then like down a side. But I haven't really touched this area yet. There is moss in my there's a lot of moss actually. It's not meant to be there. I'm back here. But oh, in a zombie. You're definitely not supposed to be. Wait, do I have? Ha. No zombies. No bad guys. I'll have none of that. I will light up with the glow lichen. No bad guys. Okay. Now that that's not an issue anymore. But this area is done. I still have my waystone up here because it's just nice to have a way to get in here, just in case. But I guess only one of the dragons is still Bobby, which is my albino bone napper that sits here. But a cut. Oh, these are still babies. I didn't realize that. Some of them have grown. These guys grow. You are just devoid of any color and you absorb all of it. Uh, but this little guy's still Bobby. This little bone napper. You grew up. I'm trying to see. Huh. I guess I haven't been over here for them to grow up. But I haven't been working. I did this. This is what I did. But I haven't really been working in here. Besides for that. I still need to do the outside too. But as you can see, my inventory is littered with random blocks as I have been working over here. This took so much longer than it should have because I lit it all up. This is all spawn proof. Thankfully. No. The rain. Oh man. Anyway. The rain is there's a dog. He's chilling in my bed now. Sorry about that noise. But all this was lit up. It's completely ready to be terraformed and built on for the jungle area. So this is how large it's going to be, which is a lot larger than over here is where it started from. But we have this little spot, and then all the way to over here and down through here is all lit up. And then I also took the time afterwards to go through. I missed a tree. There's the dog again. Why are you making noises underneath me, buddy? Okay. For some reason, my dogs like to sit underneath my chair or I'll sit at my desk, so there's gonna be weird noises. But I lit up all this area so that it was all spawn-proof to that line here. So the entire flower forest is eventually going to get remade and spawn-proof, as well as I'm gonna continue the coastal line across to over here, where I need to deconstruct this ship at some point. It is very much not needed here. And then it's gonna go over here, and then this will be a beach line, which will be fun. But eventually this area will also be lit up to be more of a plains area. I'm gonna leave it as is, mostly. But it's gonna be so much fun. I'm so excited. But all this was lit up. I need to go through and light up more, but it takes so long to light up entire large areas. But I am excited for this because I get to start this video with the jungle. I've been waiting to do this. I'm so excited. But we're going to get into this today, and I am going to hopefully keep in a majority of the process. But it's going to be a lot of terraforming. It's going to be a lot of trees. I like building trees. And the other plan is to make little rock columns, kind of like this one, which he sits on the edge, but I'm ignoring it. To add some in, because this is actually where you find the sentinels in the jungles. You can find them on little rock pillars like this. So I'm really excited, and I have plans to add in a bone area, like how these guys have it. Naturally, when they generate in the world, they have little bone areas that they guard, because sentinels guard the resting place of dragons. So I'm super excited, and we're gonna go ahead and get right into building, and I will see you all then. I'm out getting clay for the jungle area, and I found this in the river. This is just the river near the base. I I didn't know this was here. How did this generate so strangely? It's half underwater, half not, because it's meant to be on land. It's not like an underwater one. This is really weird. Huh. Does it have good loot at least? I'm gonna burn my toes on some. Oh, it doesn't have any good loot. I have another porter mug. Let's drink it. I don't feel so good. I'm gonna leave you guys not to suffer with the nausea that I'm currently suffering from. At least I know now that they gives fire resistance. But this is a lot. This was all meant to be lava, and it made it into obsidian instead. Oh, I think I just witnessed murder. Or well, death by magma block. I think there was a squid incident. Are you okay, buddy? Oh, I'm gonna save the squid. Run, fish, run! It's not safe over here. It's dangerous. Oh, that looks cool. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going back to slowly, painstakingly mining clay, since I don't have the version of mud existing in the version I'm playing, but rain is loud. But I'm gonna keep getting the clay and finding weird structures, I guess. After the strange portal that apparently was in the water, I still don't understand how that spawned there, because it was a land portal underwater. I don't know. But I collected a whole bunch of clay, which I never ended up using. Now looking back, which I'm gonna have to go back and use that. But it was definitely a journey. I finally realized afterwards that, like, I could just go to a cave and get all the clay I needed, and it would be 10 times easier. So I don't know why I was swimming in the river at that point, when I finally realized that, and decided to go back and actually do it the correct way. But it was fine. It was gonna be okay. I ended up now using a whole bunch of different types of resources, and do not judge me on the fact that I don't know how to make mossy cobblestone. I thought the vines would work. It didn't work. Apparently, the modded vines don't count. But it was definitely a learning curve to figure out how these rocks go. I spent a good amount of time just trying to figure out the design and how I wanted things to be placed. This is the first one I did, so it looks a bit I guess you could say. at the start, it definitely looks better the farther I go on, because I was learning how I wanted everything to be done. I also didn't realize how many blocks I needed and had to make them as time goes on. But I definitely figured it out. It was fun. I do enjoy building. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I definitely enjoy it. And I had a great time just figuring out how I wanted these to look. It was very interesting to get all the blocks down and figure it out, but fun in the end. I had a great fun, but building is not my forte, and it definitely shows at different points. I kind of just wing it and figure out how things I want as time goes on. I might go back and adjust things after this, now that I'm looking back on how I did it. It was definitely interesting, but this rock I'm actually pretty proud of. It came out nicely, and it adjusted how the terrain looked. It wasn't all just flat. Now this one, I had spent a couple doing it, so I knew what I was doing. I didn't mean to grab the andesite. I meant to grab stone as the base, but this one had a base of andesite, and the trickiest part with this one was there was a cave I covered up from below. There was a couple of those around, so I fell into a couple of holes. That was my fault. I should realize the first time I broke a block and there was a cave that I needed to be careful, but I didn't. I instead ignored it and kept falling into the cave, and it was definitely not my brightest moment, but oh well. Now, after I had done a couple of these by this point, so it was a lot easier to just go with the flow and get what I wanted done. Definitely easier than the first one, and I liked adding the tuff in as like a shader block, is what I guess I could call it. But it added variety and definitely looked interesting based on how the blocks were arranged. And the gravel, I wish gravel had a stair or a slab that I could put, but I understand how that would be difficult. So I'm glad I could figure it out and blend the gravel in with the block palette that I chose to look like the rock is kind of crumbling into the landscape instead of just being, here's a rock, bam. I'm hoping the gravel kind of shows that, like, there's different textures to this rock, like some of it's gritty and worn down from years of being there and different things. So I actually really enjoyed that. It was fun. Now, once I got to this point, I did almost die to oh goodness, what is that dragon called? I can't remember. I don't remember. But I almost died to a dragon, trying to figure out the landscape of how I wanted this to be. This is took straight from the game, so I found an example in one of the jungles and went there, and then I came back and got building this. But it was so fun. I had a good time. I will enjoy, I do enjoy making bones. That is my favorite part. I don't know why I enjoy making skeletons so much. I just think it's so cool to add those types into Minecraft where the bones show. This was definitely an interesting curve to try and figure out how I wanted this to go. I wanted it to kind of be like the spine that is in the cave, or the mountain, and it is a lot harder to make on a very much smaller scale with just bone blocks. I struggled a little bit trying to decide how I wanted them to be placed, and realizing different things in the fact that the blocks are directional. So I need to figure out what direction I want them to be and how I want that to work. Directional blocks I struggle with a lot because Deep Slate is also a directional block, and that is tough trying to get to maneuver the way you want it to. So there's a little bit of like, I'm going to place it here, and it don't work. I'm not going to place it here, and instead I'm going to fix it instead because I messed up. But there was a lot of, like, extra puzzle, and I wanted to add different types of blocks in and have it to where it was definitely textured to look like something degraded there. Of course, this would be shown as like another dragon because of the types of dragons that guard these bones, but it was definitely interesting. This was probably my smallest bone structure I've made so far, and it was definitely difficult. I thought the wing in the mountain was difficult. Mountain, brain, not working. But this was hardest. I knew basically of how I wanted it to look, but I didn't understand how I needed to make it so small so it would work. It was definitely strange, and I realized at the end I forgot a block, so I had to go back and add it in, and I think it looks pretty good to show, like, the moss is not there. Now, I skipped over the building of this structure to make it to the end, so it was, like, 20 minutes long. It was so long. I tried to figure out how to make it look correctly, and by the time I realized that, oh, I should add moss into it, that'll make it look right, so it doesn't look like I just stacked a top of moss on top of it. I had already, like, built it. I had to thicken it so that, or, like, add to the edges to make it so that it wasn't so small and weird looking and top heavy. So it was definitely, like, a bit strange, and here, I'm trying to figure out how to place blocks to use as scaffolding, but I don't want to ruin the grass or anything, so I'm, like, choosing random spots to do it. It was weird. But the moss dripping down, or, like, climbing down kind of onto the other blocks definitely helped with blending it in so it didn't look so funky at the top. And then I went through and added, but I have a whole stash, which I paused occasionally here, so if there's, like, a weird pause, it's probably because I was doing something IRL, or I, like, need to go grab something. I didn't want the place to be too dark, so I added one piece of little lichen. I need to collect more vines, because I don't know why I had so little amount of these, or why I placed that cobblestone. But I ended up just scattering them. I don't know why I didn't, like, just go to the top and do that, and instead decide I'm going to jump instead and get everything I want by jumping instead of actually doing it correctly, like now. I decided I'm not going to build any more scaffolding so I don't ruin the grass, and instead I'm going to jump, and it did not work quite how I wanted it to, obviously, but my brain obviously didn't work. Now, I had a glowberry on me from when I found one of these structures, and I saw they had glowberries on them, and I was like, oh, that's so smart, that's so cool. Now, I went and grabbed a stack of them because I have a farm that's down in my, like, farm area under that building, but it just kind of sits there, and there's actually not that many glowberries in it, because it's been there for a long time. It's hitting it into the wall, and there's just a random barrel for me to actually use. So here's the dragon. I could not remember this dragon's name, but the sentinels. That's what it is. I had a sentinel almost kill me because I was trying to get stuff, so that was fun. Dragons can be a little finicky with flying and landing, so if you're not landed in the correct spot, it's gonna be mad at you and it's not gonna want to land, which was so much trouble than what it was worth. Now, here I'm now building. I had set out a couple of spots to build real big trees to help with the canopy, to make it, like, feel real big and that, like, everything is working together, but I was building this, like, trunk, and then I realized, wait a minute, it cannot be that large. That does not make sense at all. If I have, like, 5 trees that are this large, I'm gonna cry because I'm gonna run out of space. And I don't really mind building trees. I do enjoy building trees, but that large, I'm good. So I decided that the main trunk would be the 4 blocks in the middle, kind of like how natural Minecraft jungle trees are, the large ones at least. So that would work that way. It actually worked really well, surprisingly. Usually if I just wing it, I can kind of get how I like it, but this time it worked really well to just wing it and see how it went. The edges are just kind of like the base, so that, like how trees get thinner as they grow. So I thought, like, I don't want them to be, like, all weird and, like, dip in a way that I want them to be, like, just random. So they're kind of not random then, because I tried to make them as random as possible. But it did work out surprisingly nicely, except for when I placed the block wrong, but that's besides the point. At this point, I am just winging everything. It's great fun. Now, the fences are to add more fluency to the way the tree is. I think that helps. It might not. It might just look a little weird, but I like it so far. It did look good at the end. Helping with the fact that I am a little bit nervous about how the fact that this tree was built, because I have to replicate it, even though I have no idea how I did it. I was in such a flow state. So, actually, the day I did this, I went and drove to Missouri, which was 2 hours away, and it was definitely a long drive, and by the time I came home, it was like 5 o'clock, and I was absolutely exhausted because I woke up at 6 and was on the road at 7, so definitely an interesting time to be driving. So much fun. Great fun. I don't like the car. I am definitely not someone who likes sitting in the car and driving long places, but when you need to get to where you need to go, you gotta do what you gotta do. And unfortunately, me and vehicles, they do not combine. They don't like me, I don't like them. We have a mutual understanding. But building this tree, I was kind of figuring out how to do the branches. I wanted them to go up, but I also wanted them to be, like, out, so, like, how, if you've ever seen the pictures of a canopy in some certain trees, they actually have, like, lines where each tree ends and the other one begins, so they all have their own space. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it to where these trees don't really need to fight for that space like those ones would in, like, natural areas. Now, in Minecraft, we don't see that. In Minecraft, they just grow into each other instead. But I'm trying to think, like, this tree should be really spread out because it has so much room, and it's grown here, and it has to be really old to have been. And my mic stand just completely fell. I've been holding it. Oh no. Well, I'm now forever holding my mic. So it was sliding off my desk and now it's fallen. Oh no. But all these are pre-recorded so that I didn't have to struggle with the fact of talking the whole time of building, because when I get focused, I just listen to music and I'm silent, completely silent. I do not talk at all. But this tree was definitely fun to build. I do like building trees. It was a learning curve to try and figure out how to build trees. I used to avoid it as much as possible, building custom trees. But I'm really starting to enjoy figuring out how different things would go and how I want them to be placed and exactly how they would fit into the rest of the environment, and it's just so much fun. I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more than I used to. But this tree was pretty large, and I added smaller branches that branched off the large branches, or I fell off the branches. Thank goodness for the bunny rabbit shoes that negate fall damage. I was lucky. I actually especially made just power 1 rockets so that I didn't have to waste my power 3, because 3 stacks of gunpowder for each one. I am not wasting those. Speaking of gunpowder, I need to go back to my gas farm and probably revamp it and or just sit there for a while. I know what I'm doing later, but these trees were definitely good fun. Now, I wanted to have the branches stick out in all directions so when I added the actual leaves, it wasn't funky. Now, leaves are definitely my hardest part of a tree. I don't know why I do them so weirdly. I make them, the, like, absolute bottom level is usually in line with the branch, and oh, my voice. It just died. Usually I have it where the bottom level of leaves is in line with the branches, so it'll go up as the branch goes up. So I don't know if it's actually accurate to how trees are, but it's just how I did it. It was a bit strange, but it took a bit to get. So I cut that part out because it was like a 30-minute session of me just placing leaves, trying to figure out how I liked it, and by this time I thought it looked okay. I might go back and change it as time goes on, but it just depends. Maybe add more in between the branches to keep the cover of the top done. But at the end, I was looking at all the things. I was thinking of how I could change it to make it look better. Now, I added a whole bunch of fencing so that it didn't look so wonk on the bottom of the trunk. It was definitely, I didn't like the way that the tops of the wood, where it was just the like circly bit, how that looked. I wanted it to be where each one had some little part where they weren't just pieces of wood. But Bunny Rabbit Shoes definitely give me double jump, and I definitely don't use that to my best way. I kind of wing it when I jump, and usually that ends up with me falling. But now there's no consequences. It's great. I was trying to think of, like, I wanted each branch to be nice, so I needed something smaller to help blend in from going up on a branch, and I decided using wood to build was definitely the best idea, which it wasn't, but oh well. I spent a good time deconstructing the scaffolding that I built in this and during this, but it was fun figuring out how I wanted the fences to go, and I spent a good 30 minutes in a jungle just destroying trees, large trees, getting leaves, getting wood, because I did run out building this tree at the beginning, and I also added glowberries. I remembered that I really liked the way they look when they hang down, and I thought they'd be good for lighting up the top of the tree so that it didn't look so dark. I didn't want my tree to be like a shadow in the sky, because the canopy adds so much shadow to the area. But adding the blueberries, hopefully they'll actually have berries on them, and I can enjoy my glowing trees once they actually grow, which I'm hoping, since this is going to take a while to build, they will actually grow and not spend 3 years for that to happen. I'm impatient. I'm not going to bone meal them, though, because I want it to look as natural as possible. So, that's on me. The hardest part was trying to figure out, can I place glowberries on leaves, or just the pieces of wood, the planks, not planks, the logs, that's the word. I was trying to figure out if I could place it on leaves at one point, and I remembered, oh yeah, I remember I couldn't do that, and you actually need to either place it on the wood and or put moss in the tree leaves to add to that, but that was my bad. I should have realized that I can't do that. It was definitely oh man type moment of, I was actually really disappointed to the fact that I could not put it on the leaves, because I would have added so many. It would have been an obnoxious amount of glowberries, and I'm glad I wasn't allowed, because I don't have that many, and I have many other trees to build that I'm going to add that to, especially the large trees. I'm really excited to build these trees. This is one of my favorite parts so far of building the jungle. I really liked building the bones, but the trees, they get me. We speak to the trees speak to us, we live in Kumbaya. It's a great time. Hakuna Matata. It means no worries. And I definitely didn't worry about building this tree, because I was so out of it that day. I was I just want to be done. I just want to be done. I'm so close to being done. Love the trees, but I was exhausted after everything that had gone on that day. It was definitely a good fun day, but I needed to eat, and I was real tired, and ended up not eating afterwards. I ate dinner instead, and then
went and sat in the living room and did not go to bed like I was supposed to, which it's okay. I'll get more sleep eventually. Maybe not on a day where I needed to record everything the day before I post, and instead of actually building things and doing what I need, I instead goofed off. Because I had places to be. Now, I wish you could collect, like, glowberries after you place them on a tree and you break them, but you can't, which is so sad because I really wanted to get that glowberry back once I break it, but if I didn't like it, I'll just wait for more, or I'll build 100 more farms. Now, at this point, I'm kind of looking at the tree, and now looking back, I need to fix one of the branches. It looks a bit too far, and I started adding more vines to the top. This is how I should have done it when I did the rock and went to the top and did it, but I didn't because, I don't know, apparently I wasn't thinking. But at this point, I was just adding as many vines as I had, realizing I ran out, needed to get more vines. Instead, just placed the vines I had, figured I'll collect them when they grow, and if they don't grow properly, then I can just break them and have more and place more down. It'll be fine. Realizing now, I just made more work for myself and not doing what I needed to do. But oh well, I'll get it later. I also probably should have put vines down onto the layers below instead of just doing the edges. But it'll be fine. I'm hoping the glowberries will contradict the fact that there's no vines there. But if I do have to go back, it'll be perfectly fine, and it won't bother me to actually go back and just finish what I need to do. Definitely interesting, but I had a great fun building this tree.
Thank you all for watching this episode with me, and I had great fun making it, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Bye bye!